Hey, it's Marthea, the MSW coach. I'm gonna jump right into it. I wanted to talk about how making bad career choices impacts you in more ways than one. But first, I want to talk about, and then I'm going to share a few strategies of how you can start making better career choices. I was talking to a friend of mine earlier, and he was talking about how in relationships, at the end of it, when it's gone bad and like all of the bad things and just, the woes of ending a relationship and it's not good. And I was like, well, if you are being brutally honest with yourself, there were clearly some signs early on in the relationship, even before you decided to get in a romantic relationship with a person, that probably told you a while ago that you probably should have never been there in the first place, right? And it prompted this much larger conversation about my own past relationships. And when I really look back at the beginning, the person, it was clear signs that I should have never been there in the first place, but you decided to ignore them. And I was telling him how people are really not in a place to want to be brutally honest with themselves about that thing, and so they end up in a state of heartbreak and disappointment. But when we got off of that call, I immediately thought about how the same thing rings true in your career, right? And so I wanted to come on and talk about that and give some examples of ways that I've seen people over the years make bad career decisions and how it shows up, right? It largely shows up with people hating their jobs or just not liking it or quitting or all of the things. And I want to be clear, yes, some jobs are not good, right? I always say that even when you have the best job, air quotes, there's usually always one person on the job that makes it bad. And it's always usually somebody internally. However, as social workers, we have a unique advantage to the game that we know how to guide people and direct them where we need to go. So I always use that to my advantage. But I say this to say this, right? A lot of people say that they hate their jobs, but the truth is that you hate your job because you made some bad choices along the way, right? And so I wanted to come on and give some examples of how I've seen that play out for people. So the first way is that I've talked to a lot of people over the years, and one of the ways that people make bad choices is in the very beginning, they ignore the glaring red flags, right? They run right past them. Right? So an example is maybe you saw that job posted and it's been posted repeatedly over the last 3 to 6 months. They put the job up, they take the job down. They put it back up, they take it back down. And it's clear that it's the same position. It's not some additional positions. That's a glaring red flag, right? But you decided to apply for it anyway, and fast forward a year, 2 years later, 3 years later, and you hate the job. And it's because you made the choice you made wasn't a sound choice, because you saw early on that there was something there, right? And the example I gave my friend was the dynamic is if the person lacked integrity at the beginning of the relationship and they are doing some unethical things, and then at the end they flip and do something similar to you, you shouldn't be surprised because you saw them do it in the beginning to somebody else, right? And so it's the same thing with a job. If you see that, okay, this job is posted, take it down, posted, that means it could mean a few different things, but it usually means that they're hiring people and then the people are immediately leaving, right? So if they're leaving, that's an indication that they don't know how to treat their people. So what does that mean for you when you get the job? They're not going to know how to treat you, okay? So the first area where I see people make not so great decisions is by ignoring the career red flags, or applying even before getting the job offer, applying for jobs that have a lot of unrealistic expectations. One of my coaching clients, they work for an organization where they literally have to see 300 clients on their caseload. Is that really realistic for one person, right? And in that person's situation, this duty kind of crept up on them. They added more and more and more. But let's say you see that job today, and on the actual job post, it says, you will be managing a caseload of 300 people and providing them clinical services. If you proceed to apply, interview, and accept that job, you have to take everything that comes along with it, because you made that choice in that moment to take that job, knowing what they put in the job description. Right? So that's just an example of like where I see people run past the red flags. Another way that people like fail to make good choices, and I want to be clear, a lot of the times why people are not making not so great choices about their jobs, about their career, is because they don't have all of the information they need to make well-informed career decisions, and because they are in their job search or moving through their career from a very reactionary place. Right? Last weekend, I did a whole 3-day career planning event where I was teaching social workers how to effectively career plan, because just like any other area of your life, you need a plan, right? Just like I always use the analogy, you don't get in your car. Let me use this better analogy. I just moved to the DFW Metroplex from Florida. Where I lived was a very rural town. It was only like one major street and an interstate that I didn't need to get on to go places, right? I would ride past the interstate. However, where I am now, before I leave my house to go somewhere, because everywhere is new to me, I have to sit on my phone. I can't hold my phone up because I'm on it, and map out on Google Maps what route I'm going to take to get there. What is the route? First of all, where is the place? I don't even know what side of the city it's on. What side of the Metroplex is on? What route options do I have? Do I have to take a toll road? I'm okay with taking a toll road, but how far is the toll road from here? Is it on that interstate that I ended up on the other night that's like a madhouse? I don't want to be on that interstate anymore. So what is the other route to get me to the interstate that I like? I have to add in 10 to 15 minutes in my commute time to figure out my plan to get to where I want to go. And it's the same thing with your career. You have to sit down from a place of what is the goal and then map it out and create a timeline. Like for me to say explicitly it takes me 10 minutes to map out my route, how do I know that? Because I planned that out. I'm like, okay, I actually will look at the route the day before and see that it's 45 minutes away. Okay, so that means I need to look at my map again in the morning 10 minutes before. So my point is, you need a plan, right? So the second area where I see people not making great choices is moving very reactionary rather than strategic, not having a plan, right? So what that means is, they only start looking for jobs when their back is up against the wall, when the people have gotten on your last nerve, or when you realize like I am really not in alignment. Like I wanted to do macro level work. How did I get here? And they're like to the point of no return. And my encouragement again is that you start shifting. Stop treating your career, your main money-making source, as an afterthought, right? Just like with an education, because an education and a career plan are two separate things. An education plan looks like when you first enroll into your degree program, what do we all have to do? We have to go meet with the academic advisor for your department. The academic advisor pulls out, this is my notes. The academic advisor pulls out the course sequence guide, or it's in your handbook, right? And they're telling you, okay, fall 2025, you have to take these 4 classes. And this is how they're going to go. And then in the summer, you're going to take these 3 classes. And then in August, you're going to take these 3 classes. That's a plan. Before you even start your degree program, you know exactly what classes you're going to take, when you're going to take them. You have the course catalog that tells you what classes you need to take as prerequisites before that. You know how many credit hours. You, depending on your college or university, you can even look up to map out when are the classes offered, what time of day, what day of the week to plan your schedule. You have to have that same type of thing in your career, and that's called a career plan. However, people don't. They treat their career as an afterthought, and it leads to you making these bad choices, right? And then you feel it once you're in the job. So one of the things that I always tell people is make certain that you are always planning out your job search. Don't wait until the room is on fire to say, I'm going to go look for a job. No, like I always recommend for people that you know what move you're going to make at least a year ahead of time, because there are a lot of variables at play. You're not just dealing with your own time. You're dealing with the current state of the job market. You're dealing with updating your resume. You're dealing with getting interviews. You're dealing with the onboarding process. That stuff doesn't happen overnight. And if it does, we usually know what the outcome of that is. Why? Because we all, as case managers, have done an interview or gotten a job offer with the organization that literally interviewed you at 1 p.m., 2 p.m. before you could pull out of the parking lot. They're making you an offer, and it's not until you're in the job do you understand why the people hired you so fast. It's because they wanted to get you before you changed your mind. Right? So it's very important that you have a clearly laid out plan for yourself around what you're going to do it, when you're going to do it, how you're going to do it, because it prevents you or minimizes the possibility of you making bad choices out of desperation. That's my point. A plan prevents you from making bad career choices out of desperation. I'm going to repeat it one more time. A career plan helps prevent you from making bad career choices out of desperation. When you have more time, you have more time to think about what you really want. You have more time to really weigh all of your options, right? You have more time to start a bidding war between a couple of organizations. Why? Because you already have a job. So it's like, if you hire me, that's great. If you don't, oh well. But you can start a bidding war between the two and say, I'm getting offered such and such salary. How much are you willing to offer me? Right? I did that one time in one of my jobs, one of my new jobs. I already had a job. That was when I was still in case management. But I started a bidding war between two other organizations. Why? Because I knew I had time. I wasn't trying to leave my job like yesterday. Okay. Another thing that leads to bad career choices is that what I see is that a lot of people don't sit down and look at their career data. What I mean by that is people don't sit down and look at to understand what didn't you like in your past jobs? What did you like in your past jobs? Okay, the things that you did not like, that means most definitely you should not be applying or taking any jobs that has elements of that. Of course, we can't control everything, but for the most part, you can control a lot when you're doing this from a proactive place, right? So maybe you're like, I don't like, I don't even know an example. Somebody told me one time they didn't like the large amount of notes that they were required, like the documentation part of their work. They didn't enjoy that because they said that it took away from their time with their participants, right? So in knowing that, then you should not be applying for a job that's heavy notes documentation. And that may not be the best example, but that's going to be the one we're going for. And how do you figure these things out, right? I got a question last week by someone that's like, well, if we're not doing informational interviews, because I always tell people, like, you shouldn't be doing informational interviews. You should just be hitting apply. If you're not doing informational interviews, how you know these things is by reading through the job description, by having a database, like in your mind, also written down, of queued up questions that you ask employers during the interview session, because it's not guaranteed, first of all, that you're going to be able to find somebody that works in those positions. So if you are betting your application to a job or accepting a job based on finding someone who can do an informational interview for you, the likelihood of you applying to jobs on a consistent enough basis to get what you want is slim, right? And truth be told, we go dig any deeper, like go deeper on that. A lot of the reasons why people are doing the informational interviews because they don't have the fundamental skills to know how to read job posts. So they have to rely on people telling them what does the day-to-day look like. But if you know how to effectively dissect the job post, you will know what the day-to-day looks like. If you know how to effectively ask questions during an interview, you will be able to glean what a day-to-day like looks like for the person in that position. And then also, more than that, spending your time spinning your wheels on doing informational interviews is rooted in fear, right? I met a social worker last year who she had been doing informational interviews for over a year. I wasn't working with her. She told me this from like an interaction like this. She had been doing informational interviews for over a year and sitting on this much larger dream to do macro level work. And it's like, when are you going to hit apply? At this point, the informational interviews are not serving you any good. They are actually keeping you in a frozen state and giving you a perpetual excuse as to why you can't apply, when at the root of it is just really your fear. Right, and that's a much larger conversation that I just finished having with my micro to macro cohorts around like how fear shows up during your job search and your career development process. And I thought about it once we got off of the call. Another way that fear shows up is when people are just engaging with my content. And I'm like, hey, I'm having a workshop or webinar, or hey, go get such and such free thing out of my bio, and people won't even click it. Because the fear is, I don't have what I need to even get a job like that, so there's no need for me to go to the thing, right? But it also shows up in when you see jobs, you don't apply. When you get interviews, you talk yourself out of the thing, right? And I did a whole live the other day on it. It's on my page here on Instagram and also on YouTube. But I want to go back to the topic of making good career choices really is important. Right? So you want to reflect on what did you like, what didn't you like. Avoid going to get jobs that do the things that you don't like, right? Which is very hard for social workers when you only know how to get case management jobs, right? If you're saying you don't like case management, you don't like taking notes and all of the things, then that means don't apply for other jobs comparable to that. However, a lot of people don't give themselves the opportunity to learn more to avoid that. So I really want to talk about how making good career choices is important, because it prevents you from going through the whole cycle of the example I gave earlier with bad relationships, of getting to the end and you're just like, how did I get here? It's because that was a choice you made in the beginning and you missed the red flags. You didn't take the opportunity to map out a plan. You didn't do your self-reflection and really ask what you want. Another thing that I see people do is that they go after jobs that don't align with who they are innately. Right? So I meet a lot of social workers. I had the honor of talking to you all one-on-one and get to know you chats. I meet a lot of social workers who are very artistic in nature. They love to like draw, paint, DIY, you name it. They're doing the thing. However, they're applying for jobs and accepting jobs that have no creative outlet of any kind. I'm not saying that you should be in a job where you're painting all day. However, if you are a creative writer and you like to write and things like that, you should at least be applying for jobs that have you responsible for the weekly newsletter to the children and their families, where you're able to put some color on it and put like a little poem in the corner. It should have an element of something, right? However, you won't know that you need that until you go through the clarity part of sitting still and really asking yourself what do you want? What do you need to be happy in your career? And I want to be clear also too, because sometimes somebody random will pop on and like catch this replay. I'm not saying that we are going to be like running to work excited every day because you're going to work. But if you have to work, you should at least not dread it, right? Like me back in the day when I was in my call center jobs, back in state government, before I took control of my career, I would cry going to work and cry coming home from work. It shouldn't be that way. It wasn't until I sat down and got very intentional about my career, like, what am I passionate about? What population do I really, really want to create change for? How do I really want to do that? For me, I know that I am a teacher. I like to advocate. I like to talk to the masses. I don't want to get caught up necessarily in all of the micro details, right? So in that clarity process, and that took me over a year. However, I've condensed it down into a process for my coaching clients now, and they do it in 30 to 45 days. But for me, because I was creating it as I went, I was figuring it out on my own. I was like, I'm really passionate about such and such and such, youth and young adults, and I'm really passionate about this, and this is why. But you have to have enough time to be able to sit in that place of self-reflection, right? And so, again, you're able to make more good choices in your career when you have enough information. And when you are being brutally honest about yourself, about when you need more information. Another thing that I see a lot of people do is like they try to cure it with getting degrees and certifications and extra credentials. But again, that is to educate you on the topic. How are we going to address the problem of the actual job and you getting the job and you moving in an aligned space, right? And so again, a lot of all of this that I'm talking about starts with clarity. And being brutally honest with yourself about what you want, what you don't want, what you need, what types of organizations you want to be aligned with. There's a lot of social workers as well that is in a lot of like mission misalignment, meaning they are working with organizations that do the work or approach the work in a way that they don't necessarily agree with. Why is that? Right? Because that person, that job seeker, didn't make a good choice and say, I'm not gonna apply to that because these people do the work such and such, and I don't agree with that. I don't think youth should be receiving that type of intervention. Then you don't apply. But if you wait until your back is up against the wall, you're gonna have to just take whatever you can get, and then it leads into this whole trickle down where you're in a cycle of I hate this job, I don't agree with these people, it misaligns with my values and my ethics. Well, if we go back, what was the choice you made that got you here? Right? And I know that's hard for people. And again, I'm going to keep referencing the whole conversation that prompted this with my friend. It's like with relationships, I had to be brutally honest with myself about, the relationship ended that way because when I saw such and such in the beginning, I chose that person anyway. And that's what I kept telling my friend. I said, I made bad choices. And he was like, no, you didn't make bad choices. I made bad choices. I picked wrong. And why did I pick wrong? Because I hadn't sat down enough to really self-reflect on what did I want, what did I need, right? In the words of my therapist a few years ago, she told me, she was like, you do the monkey bars. Back then I would go from one long-term relationship to another. Like my shortest relationship was 8 years, right? Because I never would sit still long enough with myself. But now I can see, now that I'm older and wise, I can see, and I've gone through therapy, you made a bad choice. When that person showed you such and such and such, that's when you should have kept walking, right? And I told my friend, I was like, now that I like have a little more experience under my belt, it's so true what Maya Angelou says. When a person shows you who they are the first time, believe them. The same is true with a job. If you got a case management job and you didn't enjoy such and such and such, Why go get another one like that? Or if you heard such and such about an organization or you read it in the news, you're like, oh no, I need a job, so I'm just going to take it. Don't be surprised when the people do it to you. Right? So it really all boils down to having enough information to make well-informed career decisions. Like me, I now can make better choices because I have more information about who I am, what I want, what I don't like, what I need. Right? What are my long-term goals? What do I think is like in alignment with who I am as a person today? But that starts with really being brutally honest with yourself. Right? So good choices. How to start making them. The first way is by being brutally honest with yourself. Be brutally honest with yourself. Give yourself enough time to go through the process. Stop treating your career like an afterthought, right? And then also making certain that when you get clear on the thing, don't muddy the waters. Don't be flexible. I always talk about the creation of a non-negotiable list. Have a non-negotiable list. And a non-negotiable list is more than I want a remote job. It's more than that. That's what I teach my coaching clients. A non-negotiable list should consist of, like, one of the things on mine is that I have to be with a macro organization that has a diverse leadership team. For the type of work that I focus my career on, I have to be with an organization that is diverse. Why? Because I know that the issue that I'm interested in impacts all youth, not just a certain demographic. So I need a team that is comprised of diverse leadership so they can understand the nature. Like, usually they understand personally. Usually on the macro level, you work with a lot of people that have personal connections to the issues you're working on. Right? So the more diverse our team is, our leadership is, that means the more diverse youth that we're touching. Right? Maybe for you, one of your non-negotiables is you have to be connected with an organization that doesn't receive, actually this is one of my coaching clients right now. They don't want to be connected with any social justice organizations that receive corporate funding. Why? Because they are a huge advocate against, and I'm not doing any justice, corporate sponsorship, capitalism, things like that. Right? So that's a non-negotiable for them. So that means that they spend intentional time looking at how organizations are funded. I spend intentional time looking at the leadership team, really dissecting and understanding what are the backgrounds of the people on leadership. I read people's bios for fun. Where did they work? What population did they work with before? How long have they been doing this? Do they really understand the problem? Oh, I want to be a part of that team. But if I look on there and they have nothing, it's like, oh no, I don't want to do that. So I don't even get wrapped up in the whole application process. None of that. These are the things before you even apply. Because I don't want to hurt my own feelings. Okay? So those are just some ways of how to start making good career choices. And I kind of strayed away from my notes and remixed some things, but I'm sure it landed with someone. You have to start making good career choices so you can really stop breaking your own heart, right? It's some things you can control when you're doing it from enough time standpoint and when you're doing it from a whole place. And when I mean a whole place, when you're doing it from a place where you have full capacity. Another thing that I see social workers do is wait until they're burnt out to start talking about their career. You're not coming from a whole place. You don't have full capacity to engage in that depth of work, right? You got to be coming from a whole place. You really have to be thinking about your career. The moment you start one job, you should be thinking about what's next. You should be mapping out what's next. You should be identifying the organizations you're going to target next, the types of jobs you're going to go for next, so you can then strategically start creating career plans for yourself. That's why I had the whole 3-day career planning retreat last week. The social workers who attended, their minds were blown. They never knew you had to think about your career in that way. And a lot of them were stretched to the limits because they had never thought about their career more than just, I go to this job board and apply. No, you should be mapping out your career goals you should have a career plan for your 5-year goals, your 2-year goals, your yearly goals, and your monthly goals. And then distill that down even more using my action planning system, your weekly goals. People who are highly successful have goals, right? In every area of their life. However, I see a lot of people don't do that in their career. A lot of you are good at planning your budgets. A lot of you are really good at planning your travel and your itineraries. A lot of you are really good at planning your schooling. But when it comes to your career, there's no plan, there's no nothing. And you're really just making decisions out of desperation. And so really you're just like, your hands are tied. So you're having to ignore the red flags. You're having to compromise in all of these areas when it comes to your non-negotiables. But then in a year you are like, I hate my job and these people get on my nerves. Well, we knew that you were going to hate your job when you first applied and you accepted it because it wasn't in alignment. Right? So make good choices. Give yourself more time. Be brutally honest with yourself about what you want, what you don't want. Stop ignoring the red flags. Enrollment is open right now for Cohort 18 of the Micro to Macro Career Accelerator. Today in my weekly coaching call with my coaching clients, I had a lot of people come into the call who are considering joining in Cohort 18. And I had like a little mini chat with them after our call wrapped up, and the feedback they gave me was off the charts. Right, I never know what my coaching clients are going to share during the call until we're on the call. And one of my coaching clients shared that she had got an interview offer for a job that she applied to a few weeks inside of the Accelerator. We also had a very great conversation about like the live that I did the other day about how fear shows up, and I shared some book recommendations of how to work through fear and how it shows up in different increments of time in people's career journey, right? Not just when you're searching for jobs, also while you're in your job. And that was really helpful. And they were sharing their reflections and takeaways from that. And then I also shared with them how to really stay abreast of their subject matter, right? So I share that to say that I feel like still talking. So I came on here and did a live with you all about making good choices. Good choices. When you make good choices, you will see the rewards of it. But when you make bad choices, you can't be surprised about the outcome. Right? And sometimes we have to call a thing a thing. I didn't make the best choice in that moment. And it's because I didn't have all the information. However, what does the excuse then become when you have the opportunity to get all the information and you still don't take it? That's a bigger question. What happens when you know better and you still don't do better? Okay. All right. So if you're interested in coming into Cohort 18 of the Micro to Macro Career Accelerator, click the link in my bio. Schedule a free 15-minute get to know you chat, and I can talk to you about the program design, the price, the payment plan, the multiple payment plan options that I have. And then I'll give you an invite to our next week coaching call so you can see what it's about. But Cohort 18 right now, I'm giving you all a special early enrollment bonus. If you enroll by Tuesday of this week, I'll give you a free 60-minute a bonus 60-minute career strategy session with me to like strategize about anything that you want to do right now in your career. The last time somebody took advantage of that, she got a macro interview within 2 weeks. Right? So, and I got someone else, they got a job offer within a few weeks. I think it was a month. Right? So the bonus is, I don't miss. Anyway, you talk to me about anything, you're going to get a win. But enrollment for my full coaching program is open. It officially opened today. It's my program promise to teach you how to identify, apply, and interview for your dream macro social work job in 3 months or less. That's not me guaranteeing you will have a job in 3 months because it depends on what you put in as to what you get out. However, that means that I will teach you everything there is for you to know and more to land a macro social work job. And I do that through a series of a few different ways. I do it through group coaching. I do it through one-on-one support because you get to meet with me weekly, one-on-one also. And I do it through community, right? Community is a large part of my program. I always talk to people about how my first macro job, it was very lonely. I was the only social worker. I worked with a bunch of K through 12 educators, a lot of business people, a lot of people from the military. And I'm in here talking about we want to create the theme for teen moms. Right? So community is a huge piece. A lot of my coaching clients attribute their career wins due to the community piece and the fact that they're coming to a dedicated time and place every week, same time, to talk about their career, to share their career wins, to strategize about their next moves, because it keeps the career at the forefront of your mind. It shifts it from being an afterthought to I only think about my job when it's bad, to no, I'm strategizing about the next step and this is what I'm going to do. So it puts my people, my coaching clients, in a place where they are no longer making career choices out of desperation. Right? So if you're interested in learning more, click the link in the bio. Schedule a chat. All right, I'll talk to you next time. Happy macro career planning. Bye.